Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. I'm Mark Stein, Thrive founder and your podcast host. We're creating sustainable, inclusive, and multi-generational residential communities. Our mission is to combat the epidemic of isolation, revitalize communities, and help others discover the many benefits of engaged community living by offering unique and ecologically sustainable co-living options. In this podcast series, join us as we discuss co-living, in addition to bringing you interesting people from around the world who are doing cool things to expand your knowledge and satisfy your curiosity. Through this podcast, learn more about our concept and see how Thrive co-living communities will bring together people from all walks of life who want to enjoy the best of independent and group living. To find out more about us, please visit our website at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. Thanks for watching and enjoy the podcast. So hi, everybody, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. Glad to have you back. I'm excited to have Michael Collins here today from Redemption Solar and Roofing. He's the solar guru of the team, and mostly photovoltaics, but really glad to have him on. We've wanted to do a show on solar and have had a hard time finding someone that would take the time to meet with us. So it speaks highly of you, and I'm really glad to have you here. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Excited to be here. Appreciate this.
All right. Well, so let's jump right in. And I'm gathering that mainly you do photovoltaics.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, sir. That's what our focus is.
So talk about the root of your enthusiasm for solar and a little bit about your path coming to this work.
Yeah. So my background is in energy efficiency, and I have lived in that space for over 15 years now. From anything from the mechanical side, doing mechanical upgrades and efficiency upgrades, to lighting upgrades, to energy audits, and specifically working in the utility space for over the last 10 years, helping utility companies lower their demand and find ways to overall lower demand and make customers happy and help them save money long term. And then for the past let me back up here. For 8 years, utility companies told me that solar was bad. Don't do it. It's a horrible idea. If anybody calls, solar is not an option. And I was told that, and I believed that. And then about 8 years into the program, I was asked to run a marketing campaign for a solar array that was being built for a local utility company. And they wanted me to switch my verbiage to, solar is great. It's awesome. You should buy into this solar share program. And I started looking at the numbers, how much energy it was producing, how much utility company was making. And I was like, wow. So this is an amazing opportunity, opposite of what I've been telling people. And I really started doing a lot of research, found out there was a lot of opportunity along with it, and decided to make a switch. I saw the writing on the wall that utility space is a monopoly here, but it's not the only option anymore. And with solar, the prices of solar have dropped dramatically over the past 10 years. And I saw an opportunity for catching a wave of what's to come and decided, hey, it's time to make a move. And that's what really sparked me. And I got really excited about helping customers. I've always been in the service industry when it comes down to it, helping customers, making sure that they're happy. And it's something that it just made sense for me and my personality, and that's where I've been.
A lot of times these large scale projects are very lucrative for the company. They'll get tax breaks and other benefits, but not necessarily that good of a deal for the consumer. Was that particular project advantageous? You know, a lot of times they'll sell it in such a way that they're leasing it long term. They're not even, the customer's not even buying it. That particular project, and I know you're not naming names, but was that one that was more beneficial to the utility than to the consumer?
by far. And it did make sense for some consumers. Don't get me wrong. If you were living in an apartment building in a condo, yeah, it makes sense. You're not a viable fit for solar, or maybe you had too many trees. Maybe your house is facing the wrong way. Yeah, and if you want to participate and give back, solar projects like that, solar share projects would have been good for them, but that wasn't the way we were presenting it. We were presenting it to everybody, and it was a very valuable operation for the utility company, and it was more about making money than giving that opportunity back. And I saw it. Nothing wrong with that by any means, but it was just an opportunity also to look at solar for everybody instead of just limiting it.
Now, you're in the Louisville, Kentucky metro area, and I assume you serve that entire metro area. Is that correct?
I do, yes, sir. My main focus is the state of Kentucky and southern Indiana. I can go anywhere throughout the United States, but this is my focus.
I know we've talked about our Thrive location a little bit down here in Tampa Bay. So, and we'll continue to explore that with you too.
Yes, sir. And
go ahead.
I was going to say, and I'll be there just on November 4th. I'll be down there as well too. So we have to connect while I'm down there.
Good. So let's talk about solar electricity in general. Prices for solar panels have come way down. The entire ecosystem in terms of inverters and all those ancillary products that go along with an installation have come down in price.
Correct.
Also, battery storage is on its way down. Mainly, I think Tesla is having the greatest impact on that in terms of battery storage. By the way, are you guys authorized to sell Tesla solar?
We are not. We are not an authorized dealer. Can we sell it? Yes, we can, but we're not an authorized dealer for them. It takes a certification behind it. We don't have that, nor I don't know if we're going to play in that space either. We haven't decided. It's available. We have some vendors that can do it for us that we can sub out, but us personally do not. Including the solar roof? Correct. We are opting out of the solar roof right now just because the availability of it, the weight behind it, and the cost just doesn't make sense for the space we're playing in right now. Okay. So mainly it's the individual panels and inverters. What about battery storage? You know, there's a lot of, I think most of the activity is directly connected to the grid and feeding back to the grid. Where are you guys on that? We're right there with them. We still prefer net metering. That's our go-to play and where we start off at. Now, however, if a customer says, I want to be off the grid completely, okay, we'll start talking batteries. However, like you were saying a minute ago, battery technology is advancing so quickly right now. The growth of the battery industry has taken leaps and bounds over the past couple of years, and they're predicting in the next 5 years, it's going to be where it will be a viable option to look at. So we're telling people, let's hold off. If you plan on having a battery, we'll get you set up for it. You'll be ready for it. But the cost right now, it has dropped a lot, but it's not where it needs to be. And the lifespan of the battery is not where it needs to be yet. And they're predicting that in the next 5 years, that lifespan will double. And the impact for your dollar will go double the distance, and it will make a more viable option for you. So the utility companies in Kentucky are honoring net metering and let's talk a little bit about how that works. I'll let you explain it. Okay. Yeah. And I like to talk in dollars when I'm putting on. You can talk in KWH if you want to, but dollars it's the language everybody knows. So let's talk about net metering. Basically, what happens is when during the day, the sunlight radiation hits your solar panels on your roof, or you're on your ground mount or wherever you choose to put them. They hit that, they start to generate energy, kWh, and that goes into the inverter. From the inverter right there, it will change it from AC to DC, making that power usable for your home. and also to go back on the grid, because your home will not use all the power that you create. Any excess that you create through net metering goes right back on the grid. So if you put $1 worth of power on the grid, they will give you $1 back right now. There is conversation around changing that to where if you put $1 on, they'll give you 70 cents back, or whatever number they decide. There's a lot of lobbyists pushing for that. Utility companies put out there for that. And every utility company is making that push, because if they give you 1 for 1, it's not the same as them making money 1 for 70% on it. And they're in the business of making money, and rightfully so. And solar right now, in the space that I'm in here in Kentucky, we are the only competitor to the utility company. Otherwise, they're a monopoly, and you can't go around the corner and say, all right, ABC company, I like your power, but I can go over here and get it a penny cheaper. So right now it's the only choice, and solar is now bringing it to them and giving people that option of getting a lower cost on their solar, on their power. And that's how net metering works as well.
And to be fair to the utilities, I think their rationale is it costs money for us to get you that $1 worth of energy. And so we have expenses that we have to cover. And if you're giving us energy back, you're not covering that cost. So you shouldn't get as much as we're charging, because we've got the expenses. I guess the homeowner could argue we've got the expense of installing the solar, but I think most states don't work that way.
That's correct.
What about shifting? You encourage homeowners to shift some of their energy use to nighttime so that they can load the meter with sunlight during the day and do their laundry, charge their electric cars, do everything that they can at night where the rates are lower. So we're feeding them higher prime rates and using less expensive electricity.
And that's what we try to educate every homeowner on, is we will do more than just a solar presentation to them, a solar analysis. We like to walk through the advantages of, hey, you doing your laundry at night, powering your EV car at night, utilizing LED lights throughout your home, keeping your thermostat on a setback, or managing it from your phone now with technology. It's more than just, I mean, a lot has changed in the past 10 years throughout how homeowners can operate, and not only reducing their energy footprint for their home, but getting the most out of their power consumption is really what we want to do. And it's just an education process. I tell everybody, I do more educating than I do anything else. I'm in sales, yes, but it's more of an education role, because it's got to be a right fit for them. And we want to help them make the biggest impact possible and get the biggest bang for their buck when they're spending it. They're making an investment in this system, so we want them to get the most out of it.
Right. And I think as people have added solar recently, and more people are, they're not focusing on the appliance side of the equation and the usage side of the equation. There haven't been many advances on washing machines, dryers, refrigerators. The efficiency of those has yes, there's some changes, but not nearly enough. There's a lot more to go. Do you also counsel them on energy efficient refrigerators that they can buy, and getting their appliances right size to use as little energy as possible?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that bugs me is that Energy Star has gone away, and not gone away in a sense of it's not being utilized anymore. It's just people aren't talking about it anymore. Energy Star appliances, there's a reason that they're getting the certification. It's because it makes an impact on it, and it's not talked about anymore. And you're right, the advances in the technology is not what it should be. You look at HVAC systems, they're not, it doesn't make sense for a homeowner to go in and totally swap out a system that they have that's running for a new system, because the energy savings isn't as much as it could be. They are making some movement, but it's not there for the dollar that you pay for it.
although if a person has a small house, mini splits are awesome. I have
Mm,
one in my
yes.
1,000 square foot house. So even if somebody went to a couple of mini splits, you can't do that for a huge house, but a couple of mini splits are a lot more efficient than a central air system,
Oh,
if it can
by
work.
far. Yes, by far.
Um, you know, I have been researching induction heating, not heating, induction cooking. And it appears that that it uses a lot more electricity at first, but overall it uses a lot less. What do you know about induction cooking?
I don't know a lot, not enough to talk about. I hear more and more people bringing it up that they're going induction heating, but I have not done the research behind it. I remember when induction lighting hit the scene, and it was a big impact on energy savings. But then LEDs came on quickly afterwards and kind of squashed it. But I don't know enough to be dangerous with it.
Okay. And I would urge our viewers to click on some YouTube videos and look at some demonstrations. It'll boil water in like 20 seconds. I mean, it's incredible. And it's not passing heat from the eye to the pan. It's magnetic, and with the pan not on the stove, you can actually touch the eye, and it's not even hot to the touch. But you put that pan on there that's magnetic, and it transfers the heat. Anyways, very interesting to me, and I'm not sure if the net result is less energy, because it does take a lot at first. Let's talk about some other things like water heating. Water heating, and to the audience, for the audience's benefit, I was in the solar energy business back in the 1980s, late 70s and early 80s. And so I didn't do so much photovoltaics, but I was definitely involved with solar water heating. And at the time, there were 65% tax credits, 20, 25 in Indiana, and 40% federal. So it was a huge tax benefit. But anyway, so I've always been a solar enthusiast. But water heating is like the second or third most expensive user of electricity or gas in a house. And solar water heating, that does not seem to be around and very prevalent in this round of solar, is very efficient because you're using black copper, to transfer heat from the sun. It usually has a glass cover on it and some insulation directly to the water. And my research is showing me that generating electricity to then power a coil inside a water heater to thermally heat the water is not really that efficient of a use for solar. What do you counsel people on in terms of water heating?
I would argue that statement a little bit. I think it's a great introduction to solar for people. For somebody looking to learn about solar, they can do just 2 small panels, will power a hot water heater. Now, back to the education portion of it too. You start talking about when will be the best time to take a shower, then it wouldn't be 8 hours after the sun's gone down and the system's had a chance to cool. And then that's where the difference is. And it's great for during the day, if your schedule allows it, or early evening even, that you get that maximum amount out of it. And it's eliminating, like you said, it's one of the biggest expenses in a home, especially when you go into a family of 4, 5, 6. It's a big impact for, you got teenagers, the impact, you're seeing the effects of it. A good alternative, if that's not it, is a heat pump, hot water system heat pump that works very efficient. And if you can keep it off high demand and keep it on the heat pump mode, it's a good alternative. but I still love the aspect of having solar as that option. And it's just a good intro to it. I wish we did more of it. I first learned about it. It's been over 15 years ago. I had a gentleman approach me about it, and I saw it, but I just didn't jump on it at the time. And I've regretted it ever since of that conversation. I still remember where I was standing with him, and we talked about it because it made such an impact, and it made sense, and it still does today. From that side of it, it's just comes to the planning purposes of it. And we live in such a microwave society that people want it now and instant. That's why we have instant hot water heaters now versus solar power hot water heaters. It's that different mindset. If somebody's willing to really think about it and then apply it, it's a great fit for them.
What about the instant hot water? There's a lot of units out there. Again, I think it might be similar to induction cooking, where it uses a lot of energy right at one time. So it may not be as good a companion for solar. But what are your thoughts, and what do you tell people about that?
They are a good companion for it on the terms of it's usually most people take a shower late in the evening when the peak demand is down. You don't have as much of a demand charge. It's better for utilities. It is an instant. It just depends on your habits if it's the right fit. If you're somebody that's a big family and you're always running out of hot water, it's more of a comfort thing at that point. It's not an energy saver, really. You're going to burn more with a hot water heater like that for an instant hot water heater versus your heat pump hot water heater, and then it's not a viable option. Back to that educational portion. A lot of factors go into it on family size, usage for that.
Mm-hmm. And I'll mention to the audience, and I'll share a resource that I've discovered through my research with you too, Michael, but there are a few manufacturers of solar water heating units, and some of them will use gravity to gravity flow. So you can preheat the water going into either a traditional water heater or an instant water heater. If you could raise that water temperature from 55 to 70 even, then you're saving a lot of energy and a lot of power. So actually separating the units and preheating and heating the water down in Tampa Bay, you can get 100% of your hot water year round with solar. In fact, you have to temper it to make sure it doesn't get too hot. Is as big a problem as not having enough, because we don't have cloudy days here. There's some new technology, and this may be digging a little too deep for the audience, but I'm interested in micro inverters that do the conversion of DC to AC right there at the panel. Are you familiar with those? Are you guys using them? And tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, we are utilizing micro inverters. We like them, especially on houses that get a little bit of shade compared to a house that's just in or an array in an open field. A micro inverter allows us to take that power, just like you were saying, convert it over at the panel. It's usually 3 to 4 panels on one micro inverter based off the size of the panel. And if we have a panel that's, let's say one panel is full sun and the other panel is, let's say, getting 90 or 80% because of a shade tree or the design of the house, the 100% panel or group of 4 panels will run 100% efficiency. And that's what they want. The 80 to 90% will pull what it can based off of 100% of what it can. And that keeps the unit fully functional. If we have one main inverter on there throughout the whole system, the whole array, then it will operate at that 80 to 90% level versus the right one's working at 100% and the other 4 only doing 80 to 90%. So it maximizes, yes, it maximizes your input from the sun. And that's what we want to get. So we primarily, on all houses that we put solar panels on, we use micro inverters to capture the most amount of sun possible. And it's even sometimes you'll see, if you're sitting outside, you see those shade clouds moving across. Well, they move across your solar as well. So it's a minor, but it keeps it working at fuller production. And that's what we want to get for our customers.
And what about if you don't have microinverters at the panel level, and you've just got one inverter at the main switchboard, if you will,
Yeah.
and one of the panels goes out, doesn't the whole system go down?
It will. Yeah. And instead of just 3 or 4 going out, the whole system will go down. And we have a monitoring system that connects to every home. And it's not like we're sitting there watching your home production, but the important part of it is it lets us know when something goes wrong. So if there's a whole system on your roof, we want to be able to identify which 4 panels. We can go straight to that inverter. We see where it is. We can identify the problem. And if it's a warranty issue or if it's a connection issue, we can fix it. We have had warranty issues where we've received a bad microinverter. And so we had to order a new microinverter, get it shipped to us, trade it out, and go from there.
I think this is one of the drawbacks of the Tesla system, especially the Tesla roof. I think they depend on one inverter at the box. And so you can really lose if you've got one section that's out, the whole thing goes down.
Yeah.
Let's talk about people's hesitation to put something on the roof because it might leak. I'm sure that's a top concern of people, and understandable.
Absolutely. And it should be a hesitation. How many penetrations do you want to put in your roof? 0 if you don't have to. I get it. I'm the same way. We're a roofing company also too. We hate sunlight. Why? Because it puts an extra penetration in your roof. We try to eliminate those. And then now we're talking solar too in this day and age, and we have to. Now, being a roofing company, we're very careful. We want to do the right thing because we warranty the work. If there's a leak, it falls back on us. So it's costing us money to have to go back out, fix it, and make sure it's not going to leak again, and fix whatever damage was caused. So it's not a positive if there's a leak. So we are very careful. We're making sure that we're sealing properly. We use a 40-year plus sealer to make sure that that's not going to be something at a low cost 5-10-year sealer. And we have to go back out there as well too, because we want to take care of our customer, because that's our name. And less penetration is better when it comes to roofing. However, it's nature of it. We're going to have to. Now, if it's a flat roof, we don't penetrate any because the weight of the panels sit on a racking system, and it's good. But when you got your typical roof, you're having to.
How do you bolt it down if it's on a flat roof?
There's 2 processes. One is we go straight to the studs in the roof, and typically it's 2 bolts per racking system per roll in that stud and holds it in. Now there's another method to where we do expanding. It goes into, we do basically 4 holes in per racking system. It gives it a little bit tighter on the racking, but still we're putting 4 holes versus 2. So most of the time we lead towards 2, just because of less holes mean less opportunity to leak.
What I meant was, if you've got a flat roof and you're not penetrating the roof, how are you holding the racking system down in high winds and that sort of thing?
And now Tampa's different from Kentucky. We typically don't have 100-mile-per-hour wind. We might get it once every now and then, especially don't have 120-mile-per-hour wind like you guys can have, or probably had recently. So it would be a different philosophy behind that. It would either be sandbags, which is something that we could add to the rack, or it would be something we do have to mount and penetrate the roof and just seal behind too. So I was not thinking Tampa or Florida. I was thinking just local market. So it will probably, when it really comes down to it, we would have to bolt into the stud or the system below and make sure on a flat roof that it's going to stay, because Tampa is a lot different than Kentucky's weather.
And there are not a lot of flat roofs in Kentucky anyway, because of snow loads and that sort of thing.
Correct.
They're mainly sloped.
Yep.
Talk about your warranty, because that is a concern for people. What's your warranty on materials? What's your warranty on labor?
Parts and labor warranty is 5 years. So that stays with us. That's in-house with us. And then we have a 25-year warranty on most panels. There is some manufacturers that it's a 30-year or more warranty, but majority of them are 25 years. Now, you mentioned you were in the solar industry from in the late 70s and the early 80s. And there's still panels that you installed 40 plus years ago that are still working today. So you talk about a warranty on those. We warranty for 25 years, but they should last longer than that.
Mm-hmm. And Tesla says that the solar roof should last longer than the house, that the house will cave in before the roof,
Yep.
which is a type of glass.
Yep.
I know in this hurricane, I saw an interview with a guy that had the solar roof, and his system never went down. Everybody else lost power, and his power walls that were attached to the outside of the house were totally submerged up to the top in floodwaters. So the thing was sealed, both two power walls sealed,
Yeah.
such that they did not lose power when everybody else around them did. And the shingles, essentially their solar shingles, stayed put on the roof.
That's awesome. I haven't heard that. That's awesome.
Pretty incredible. Let's see. What do you think is the near-term future of solar? Next 5 years. There seems to be a lot of I was going to say energy around it, but I don't want to make a bad pun, but a lot of interest and a lot of growth. What do you see as the short-term future, and what about long-term?
Right now, we are in the infancy of it. And the best way I can describe it to somebody that's 40 years old or older, it's just like the cell phones were back in the late 90s. Everybody was curious about them. Everybody was starting to get them. By 2008, everybody had one. So it's right now, solar is the same way. There's a lot of curiosity. We're in the early 90s phase of people having they would have their car phone or their bag phone, and solar is kind of like that new thing. It's like, it's kind of cool for them, but I don't know if it'll work for me. I got questions about it. Will it work? But utility companies are going to start pushing more and more people towards us. As inflation hits the utility space, it's going to continue to rise. Our local utility this year goes up 12%, and we're one of the more conservative utility companies, one of the more lower priced in the nation. So I've heard upwards of 20% for a lot of utilities. Prices are going up January, and they're going to continue to rise throughout the year. I know ours is requested 12% for the next 3 years. They only were approved for this year. The next 2 years are still under evaluation. So with for those rising costs, it's going to be, people are going to be looking for other options, and they're going to be forcing them right to us.
Why would they be incentivizing consumers to go with solar? I can understand why they would want to invest in rack systems, massive utility scale solar, because they're going to be, as the prices of solar panels plummets or continues to go down, then it's going to be more and more cost effective for them to produce electricity with solar panels. Also, transmission lines and storage are getting better. But why would they, what interest do they have other than good PR to encourage and incentivize homeowners to invest in solar?
The utility company doesn't have any. There's no incentives behind them right now. The only incentive is that maybe if they get it approved to where you're doing a 1 to 70%, but that's not happening here yet. Some utilities have made that happen. In Southern Indiana, they made it happen, or throughout the state of Indiana, they have legislation passed for it, but nothing here yet.
Mm-hmm. And Kentucky's a coal producing state. What do you say to the objection? Not objection, but well, you know what? This is more about solar, about electric cars. And I would think that the utility companies would be encouraging the purchase of electric cars because the usage is way up. and it
Yeah.
could take an entire array just to charge a Tesla overnight. So the energy usage is definitely going to go up with increase in sales in electric vehicles. Now I lost my question. Can you get me back?
Yeah. So you were talking about utilities incentivizing they want more people having electric cars. I agree, because their usage too. I look at it as, I think everybody that has an electric car should be going with solar on their house if it's viable as well too, because they're going to be pulling a lot more from the utility, from the grid. And why not? And doing that, why not offset it with solar from your own? Yes, you're eliminating some of the gas now from the pump, but you're pulling at a different angle. And it does cost. The argument's out there, well, how much did it cost to make those solar panels? How much electricity did it cost? How much does it cost to put together a roof? Or how much energy is used in everything that we do, whether it be making of a phone, making of a desk, making of a computer. We got to have energy. We're just on the side of, yes, we use energy to make our panels, but at the same time, we're putting back on the grid with our panels. So we're putting some good back on with it. And anybody that buys an EV, it almost lines right up. Why not get a solar system and help along? You want to make that impact. Let's continue to make a big impact.
And I know my point. My point is that if you don't have solar charging your Tesla, you're using coal to power your electric car.
Yep.
So how good is that for the environment? So not so good.
Yeah.
Battery costs are going way down. Mm-hmm. Solar panel costs are continuing to go down. One thing I saw, and I know, to the argument that it takes energy to create the solar panels, yes, but they're going to be working for 20 to 40 years to create electricity. So yes, you're spending some money to produce them and some energy to produce them. I saw a study just recently on electric cars, because people make the same argument. It takes a lot of electricity to create electric cars, and a little more, somewhat more, because you're creating a battery.
Yeah.
But the net payback, where an electric car takes as much energy as a gas-powered car to create, that payback is less than 2 years. So like 18 months, it has reached parity. And then, of course, the effect on the environment is a lot less, because there's zero emissions coming from the electric car.
Yeah.
If somebody was wanting to charge their Tesla or other electric cars, I know there's some other ones out there. I just happen to be a very bullish on Tesla. But if they want to use solar to power an electric car, what percentage of the average system that you install would it take just to charge the Tesla, assuming overnight that it's going to charge it up overnight?
If they're driving, it depends on how far they're going every day, and once again, how old their battery is too, because older battery lives won't last forever. Now Tesla batteries and most car batteries are getting a good lifespan compared to they're lasting longer than 15 years. I would say, to be safe, and I'm probably overshooting it, and you can always use the power for your home. And I don't know. That's a good question. I'd have to do more research. I would say my first thought is, for somebody that's buying an electric car, they should have at least a 6 kilowatt system on their home to help offset that. And that's not a big system. You're looking, a small system is really what it comes down to.
How many panels, average size panels, would that be?
You're probably looking at 16 panels, right in that ballpark. So not a lot. I mean, we put 100 panels up on some places, and now that's a big system. That's a really big system. But the average is about 24 to 30 panels that we do.
And most roofs won't support that many panels. So especially south facing. What about the situation when somebody doesn't have a south-facing roof? That's obviously ideal. They've just got east and west facing. So the sun's going to come up and do the east side, and then as it's setting to the west side. You still encourage people to do that? Is it still cost effective?
We have a serious talk about it, and it's some people just wanted to have it. We use a system that does an analysis of their home and will show them the sun production. And just to clarify, you say south facing. I like to say that's the way the panels are facing. Your house would be facing north if you want to do it. It gives people both perspectives there. So like, for example, when I look out my front door, I'm looking north out of my house. So the south facing of my house is where my panels are for my home. And it just worked out perfect. I didn't plan it like that. I went into solar business when I started there, but it worked out really well for me. So if it's east to west, we have that conversation saying you're not going to get 100% like somebody else would that has them facing south. So is it right fit? Your production's not going to be as good as somebody else. I had somebody recently that said, I want the solar on the front of my house. I'm like, you don't need solar on the front of your house. She goes, I want my neighbors to know I'm making an impact. I'm like, okay.
Was that the north slope?
It was. And I'm like, you're the boss. And we put 4 panels across the front, just so it will show that she's making an impact. She was happy. She didn't care about the production. She wanted awareness out there. That's her. I am not.
I'm on the south slope.
Yeah, and the south slope had majority of them. It made sense. It was just she wanted awareness, and it's her money. I wasn't going to say no. You don't. I did say you didn't need to, but I wasn't going to stop her from doing it. That's what she wanted. So for her, that's not the fit for everybody. Majority of people do not like solar on the front of their house. Rightfully so. It doesn't look as appealing. Most people, though, at the end of the day, they don't look at a roof. It's not like you're driving around saying, oh, that's a nice roof. I wish I had a roof like that. Most of the time, you don't even notice it unless it's your roof. And most of the time, you don't even notice that unless there's a problem. And it's just one of those things we don't look at unless you're in the industry. Now you'll be looking everywhere that you listen to this podcast and noticing everywhere. And all of a sudden, everybody has solar, you'll feel like, because it's on the forefront of your brain. However, that's not the truth. Right now, across the nation, we're less than 2% of homes have solar on them. And I think, though, back to your question just a minute ago, that number is going to skyrocket over the next 10 years. The next 2 to 3 probably see a slow growth, but about year 4 to 5, man, it's going to really be an industry changing, and we're just going to have to. And as we prepare for growth throughout our economy, we're going to need those options out there too. And I think as much as the utility companies want to fight it, I think that the government is going to step in, as they have, and incentivize, but they're also going to make it regulations where they can't be penalized by the local utility company for making power. They're not going to say you have to pay for it, but they are going to say you need to credit for what they put back on.
What about homeowners associations, covenants, those sorts of things that prohibit people from putting them even on the back side of their house? Talk about how that affects people and how it might be changing, if you're seeing any changes there.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes coming. HOAs are great. I don't fight them. That's their rules. They have the rules for a reason. Every HOA that the customer has asked me to talk to them or reach out, we do so respectfully, number one. And then we say, here's what the customer's looking at. The solar, only time I will even present it is if it's on the back of the house. And I have not had one turned down by an HOA being on the back of a house. I've had HOA say there's no way on the front. It's in our rules. We're not going to do that. I get it. In January 1, based off of what the recent, what act was it that was just passed? Was it the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed? It says in there that HOAs will no longer be able to dictate solar being put on. I'm not going to be the guy taking that fight to the front. HOAs are there for a reason. They pay those fees for a reason. that homeowner, we recommend if they really want to make that push, write a letter, do it respectfully, request it, and we'll go alongside of you. But it's not our fight. And it's one of those things. I'm very much so, I like solar on the back of a house. That's me. I don't like cutting down trees to put solar on if we don't have to. It's just one of those things. I like it when it makes a fit. And I tell everybody out there, 50% of homeowners probably will not qualify for solar, whether there's trees, the way their house faces, currently HOAs. There's a lot of stuff that goes in impact. Older roofs, a lot of times do not work for solar because of the weight bearing on them. They don't have the same standards. We have to get in an attic on an older roof, or we get an attic on all roofs to see if if the joists are good and can handle the weight that we're putting on. We're not putting on a ton of weight, but we are adding weight. So we want to make sure that it's good. A lot of factors go into it when we're looking into it.
Plus, I'm sure you encounter some roofs that are old that need to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the economics of Tesla solar roofs seem to make more sense, because I think it's about the price of the electricity over the period plus the roof, that the Tesla solar is about the equivalent. So if you've got to put a totally new roof on there before you can put the solar panels on, that's got to be a disincentive and very discouraging for people.
It is, yeah. And it's the good news is I don't think we mentioned this yet. There is a tax credit available to you throughout the federal government. All 50 states qualify for this tax credit, and it's 30% back on your purchase cost. So if you buy I'm just using a round number, $10,000 system, you're going to get $3,000 back. If you buy a $100,000 system, you're going to get $30,000 back. That's the tax credit that comes to you. Now, if you put a new roof on, you had to put a new roof on because your roof is too old. That incentive also goes to that new roof. You put a $10,000 roof on, you get 30% back on that roof as well too, because it has to be a new roof.
Huh.
Yep.
If you're putting on solar.
Correct. So if you just put a new roof on, you don't get the tax credit. But if you put it solar along with your new roof, you get a tax credit. Or if you put in let's say you build a pole barn for your new roof or for your new solar system, for that, you can get 30% back on that. Or if it's a farmer out there and they say, we got the land to build an array, well, let's build that array up higher so that your cattle or your sheep can use it for shade, and it's a dual purpose, and you get the tax credit on whatever you build for that too. Let's
talk about rack-based systems, because sometimes people will have open space, a big enough property, more in the rural areas than in the city, but the roof itself is shaded. What's the economics on the rack installed systems? And I guess, the distance from the house and all that has to be taken into account, but talk a little bit about that.
It does. They are nice. I would rather put an array in a field or on a barn versus putting on a house any day. Once again, we're back to that penetration again on a roof. It's less for your roof. But again, your roof is free real estate. Take advantage of that free real estate too. So if we can build an array, we will, if they got land. Just most people do not have land available to them. If they have a barn, that's usually my first conversation is, how about that barn? And it might cost you a little bit more, but it's less penetration on the roof, and we will dig a trench and we will run it to your meter.
Mm-hmm. And a leaky barn is a lot less hassle than a leaky house roof.
By far, and you can get to that leak in that barn a lot quicker than you can in your house.
Yeah. So another thing related to ground mount is the growth of tracking systems, where the rack that holds it will track with the sun. It can be lowered down in lowered in the summer months and raised in the winter months, where the angle of the sun is higher. what I'm hearing is that a couple of years ago, it was more cost effective, but with the decrease in the price of the panels, that it's better just to face them south, have them fixed, maybe have the lowering and raising, but not the tracking system that's going to track with the sun during the day. Talk to me about it.
The tracking system's great, and we have it as an option. However, we don't do it because there's mechanical failure that come along with the tracking system historically. It's just like anything. We have a roofing background too. If you put an attic fan in your roof, one thing I can tell you, it's going to break. It's eventually that fan's going to stop running when you need it to run. The tracking system is a mechanical moving part that it's not built to last the lifetime of a solar panel. Solar panels are, like I said, 40, 50, 60 years and still going strong. So it's not going to last as long. So it's most of the time people just get a standard array and it's not going to move and it faces south.
What about the cost effectiveness of having it so that you could even manually with a couple of people raise it once or twice a year and lower it once or twice a year? What about that?
I haven't met anybody that wants to go out and do that. I just honestly, energy efficiency background, well, you have to constantly remind people to change the filters on their home every 6 months, much less go and try to, hey, let me go adjust that. Right, here's your email to do it. And us as a company, that would fall back on us, and we might send you a reminder, but it's up to you to do it. And it's like everything else, it gets pushed off.
Yeah, there's some cranking mechanisms that you can crank it up and down, but you got to go down.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else haven't we talked about? We've covered a lot of ground here. What else haven't we talked about solar? That tax credit applies to energy efficient appliances too, does it? Give us the whole spectrum of what qualifies.
Yeah, so tax credits it's based off of energy efficiency products that are making a dent in your energy usage. 30% back on your HVAC systems, your appliances, if it's a energy approved roof as well too, you get that as well. There's a percentage back on that. So if you're not putting solar on, it's a white Energy Star roof, can get it as well too, and the flat roofs. But not many people are going with white roofs. Your solar system, of course, the total package of that, and the install cost is covered in that too. Those are the main ones. LED lights, but you're not buying a ton of LED lights on that as well too. And for businesses, there's cost segregation as well too, that you can start to write off that depreciation early. That's for businesses only, for tax advantages as well too. And if you're building a building and you want to put solar on it and you want to write off that building that you're building it for, I'll tell you first, please contact your CPA. Contact your CPA on that one. That's a big thing to do beforehand, before any assumptions are made, to do that.
Because if you're building a new house and putting solar on the roof, you're not going to be able to write off the house.
You can a percentage of it, because a percentage of it was the roof, and there's some load bearing stuff that we can add into it. But you can't say, I had to spend build a $500,000 house. Let me get 30% back on that, government. You might get audited on that one.
What about insulation and tightening sorts of things on a house or a business?
Windows, definitely. Insulation is as well too. And make sure when you're buying these energy efficient upgrades that your contractor is giving you the right documentation on that, stating that it was energy efficient, stating that the improvements were made, and it needs to state on that invoice. So when you turn that invoice into your CPA, it's clearly defined, and it needs to say that on there. And we make sure when we put on a new roof, we have to put on a new roof, and we put on solar with it. It's clearly defined that we had to put on a new roof for the solar system. Otherwise, it would not work.
So if you're if you know you need a new roof and you can't get your homeowner's insurance to cover it because of hail damage or something, it's a good time to think about adding solar, right?
Yes. Or if you need to cut down a couple old trees, it's the end of life. Those are as well too. Those tree removal for solar is also covered as well too.
Do you know of a good government reference website? I'm not even sure they promulgated all the rules yet.
Yeah, it's not.
Starts January 1.
I was on there today on where it talks about I just said it a minute ago. I always want to say the Energy Act, but it's not. It is
Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act. If you Google it, almost the first article that comes up breaks it down, but it doesn't break it down into the details. It's supposed to start January 1, be in effect. They did retroactive anything in 2022 for the 30% tax credit, because it was 26%. So they said anybody that installed here, and it might have said 2021 as well too, a 30% tax credit for them on their solar install or their energy efficient upgrade that they've made.
And since I've talked up Tesla so much, there's a $7,500 tax credit for Tesla or for EVs
E-cars.
up to a certain price.
Yeah.
And it's limited. That one is limited by income. You can't make over X amount as a single or X times 2 amount as a married couple.
Yeah.
What else do you want to tell people?
That was a lot, and I'm surprised you're still listening if you are. I mean, there's other stuff. There's common questions we could cover, but you're going to have questions, and feel free to reach out to me.
How do people contact you?
Best way is probably email. It's michael@redemptionsr.com, MICHAEL @redemption, REDEMPTION, SR stands for solar and roofing. So if you want to take it, or my cell phone number, please call or text me. It's area code 502-428-9924. Happy to help you out with any questions. Happy to give you a price comparison on something too. I had a friend that said, will you check with my buddy? He feels like he's getting a high quote. He was 3 times higher than what we were. Yeah, I wasn't doing it to get the business, but it ended up, we got the business because of the price was so much. It was just a difference. And sometimes it's different locations, but also too, unfortunately, there's salesmen out there that will meet with you and they'll say, well, wait, what if I give you 5% more off? What if, and that's a weird game to play. We're just here to educate. We'll give you the facts behind it. We are a business. We are for profit. We can't give it away. And if anybody says it's free, there is cost associated with solar. I've heard it before. I've heard somebody say, well, they offer me a free trip to Disney. I'm like, did they? Or did they say you could use your tax credit to go to Disney and do with it what you want? And they go, huh. And they looked at it and it was their tax credit they were saying. So be careful. It's a new industry. There's a lot of people out there that are trying to take advantage of it, take advantage of customers. Just do your research. I'm available as a resource. Happy to help. Feel free to reach out. If I happen to miss you, I will call you back. Please leave me a message. I will get back with you. But here's a resource for you.
And you were kind enough to give your cell phone. Let's tell them that you're in the Eastern time zone. So somebody in California in the middle of the night doesn't give you a call.
Yes. Shoot me a text if you're in Cali. So yeah.
One more, and then we'll wrap up here. There are some leasing options that have been really popular with solar sales companies where you're not going to own the system, and there's less upfront cost. They're talking about getting the savings, but you're not going to own this thing. Talk a little bit about the difference between financing and leasing, and some of the leasing options have really bitten people on the butt because they can't sell. They're locked into a contract, and even if they sell their house, they're obligated. Talk about some of those problems.
Yeah. So once again, read the T's and C's, look over it a lot. We on our side, we do not do any leasing. We do financing only. And I didn't mention this earlier. Financing has been great for homeowners. There's anywhere from 1.9% up to, we're seeing as high as 5.9% now as well. Everything's rising, but the average is about 2.9% that we recommend on financing, which is great. And it's usually a 25-year term loan. And if you happen to, let's say you buy it for your home, but then 10 years in, you want to sell. Okay, that loan stays with the home or the new homeowner can buy it off with the purchase of the home. That's financing, just like anything. Now, there's also leasing options out there, and you're absolutely right. Once you lease it, you saw a lot of people back in 2008, 2009, these leasing options come up. Hey, we will put an array on your land. We will eliminate your utility bill. You don't pay anything, and we have it. Yes, they have it, and they have you there as well too. If you try to move, you can't move with it. It's with their terms in their agreement, and most of the time it's a 50-year term on that before it's even a viable option for you to buy it out. And most people haven't gotten there yet. I've heard the horror stories behind it where, hey, this sounded great at first, but now it's not what I thought it was going to be. So do your research on it. You don't see as many of them anymore because solar is becoming more popular with financing, and the cost has come way down. Cost has dropped 70% over the past 10 years. And it's 10 years ago, that was the big term out there. Now it's not as much as it is, but there are still a few I hear about.
What are typical paybacks? I lied when I said that was my last question. What is typical payback? And I know it has to do with the size, but let's just say the average system that people will have you install. What's net zero?
11 years. That is the average that I see is 11 years. So somebody pays cash up front, it's 11 years all day, right in that number. Seen it a little bit lower, seen it a little bit higher based off the usage and how much we can do, but it's not bad. 11-year payback is pretty good, especially when somebody's looking for either a gift long-term, they know they're going to be in that house long-term, and that's not factoring in the rising cost either. That's 11 years based off today's numbers. And I know I said I wasn't going to say anything else, but I'm going to say this. The average homeowner in Kentucky pays about $220 a month in utility cost. If you factor that out, over 25 years, that's over 60 grand that they pay in utility cost at today's rate. If you do the average inflation cost of utility power in the next 25 years, if it stays at 4%, they're going to pay, instead of 60,000, it's going to be closer to 180,000. And a solar system
Go ahead.
Now, and a solar system will cost them closer to 50,000. I'm just ballparking a number here, but closer to 50,000 over that 25-year span. So they could, for a system that size, they could finance a system for closer to 50,000. And instead of paying that 60,000 over 25 years, they have a savings. And that's not including the rising cost of utility power. So based off current, they're going to save way more than just that 10 grand of what with rising costs coming.
And then once the system's paid off in the 11 years or so, even if it's more, then they've got that energy that's coming free for another 10, 20, 30 years.
Forever. Yeah. And I love the saying of what you said about Tesla. It'll probably outlive the house. Mm-hmm. Most of these panels are, like I said, there's panels that were put on 40, 50, 60 years ago that are still running strong. Mm-hmm. Have they lost a little bit of it? Yeah, they lose a little bit, but it's still, there's not a lot of moving parts for them to break, and they run and they're durable and they're hard and they just keep going.
All right. Well, this has been an invigorating conversation. I'm even more enthused than I was at the beginning, if that's possible. So I'm definitely a solar enthusiast. And I really thank you for not only coming on, but for what you're doing to help save the planet.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we are making an impact. Everybody makes an impact in some way. This is an opportunity for us and loving it. So thank you for this time. And yeah, seriously, take me up if you got a question. Here to help. You have my cell phone number. Seriously about that. I know some people say it, but reach out.
Awesome. All right. Thanks. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed it, got a lot out of it as I did, getting some questions answered. And please reach out to Michael. We'll put his contact information down below in the show notes. If you want to support the podcast, there are many ways to do that, and those are also down in the show notes. Go visit thrivecolivingcommunities.org for a little more information. And we'll see you in the next podcast video. And it's also on all of your audio podcast stations. So, Michael, thanks again. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
We'll see you next
thank
time.
you.
Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. To learn more about our mission and how you can support our vision of creating co-living communities worldwide, please visit us at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. To receive advanced viewings of our podcast and other exclusive content, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Thrive Co-Living Communities. You can also learn more ways to support our mission in the show notes below. Amazon Smile, GoFundMe, Kroger, and our own Thrive Gear store, where you can buy t-shirts, hats, and many other items. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.